Shall we start, sir?
Yes, start.
Yes, sir. So, very good afternoon to one of the eminent professor, Dr. Sundar Lal Pal, present over here. In this 14th session, we will listen from Dr. Sundar Lal Pal, Assistant Professor, Department of Chemical Engineering, MANIT, Bhopal. His topic of presentation is synthesis and characterization of biomaterials. Before presenting, I must speak few lines about him. Dr. Sundarlal Pal, sir, passed out a PhD degree from IIT Kanpur in 2012, MTech from HBTI Kanpur in 2001, and BTech from Chemical Engineering HBTI Kanpur. He worked as GT graduate trainee in Jayashree Industry, Sonipat, Haryana in between 1998 to 99, and after that he joined as a project engineer in Department of Chemical Engineering IIT Kanpur in between 2001 to 2007. After that, he joined as a teaching assistant of Department of Chemical Engineering IIT Kanpur from 2007 to 2010. But after from 2010, he was joined as an assistant professor of chemical engineering department MANIT Bhopal. He is conducted 4 SCTP and delivered more than 7 lectures. He was handled 12 number of projects. He has guided 5 PhD students and 7 number of MTech students. He was published 3 book chapter and 14 number of international journal. So now, sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for introducing me, Mr. Rudra Narayan, sir. And thanks a lot to give an opportunity to to deliver a lecture on the field of renewable energy or also so biomaterials. And here, this is the program. Thanks to your university, Raman Global University, Bhubaneswar. Bhubaneswar is very holy place. I visited 2 times there. And green technology waste. This is the your 5 day program. Today I will discuss with apart from engineering little bit sciences like you will understand the biomaterials. What kind of materials in the health sector and how to characterize that materials and what is the requirement of that biomaterials in the our daily life. So I'm going to start my lecture. As you know, so biomaterials in the every field of. Yes sir, is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is
Yes.
it visible?
So this the biomaterial field is the multidisciplinary field. It involving material science, physical engineering, biological and clinical sciences. So it is important for biomaterials researcher to understand how to characterize different materials. So my main focus will be on the application of biomaterials in the field of health sector or our day-to-day life or our body, well, means human body, how to influence the latest research of biomaterials in the with the our human body. So first we should understand what is the biomaterials in the way it is the material, a non-viable material used in medical science or medical devices intended to interact with the biological systems. Means non-viable. Viable means that does not have adverse effect in our body if it is using in a human body. And developing independently means there is a broader and can encompass a wide range of applications. Okay. Next, what is the biocompatibility? Biocompatibility of a biomaterial. It is very important in the case of when you are using directly in the human body. So it is defined as the material to perform an appropriate host response in a specific applications. Means there is no side effect. Appropriate host means resistance to blood clotting. That should not be if it is using as a membrane contact with the patient blood, and it has a resistance to bacterial colonizations. Next is the uncomplicated healing, tissue engineering applications. So biocompatibility is the essential part of any biomaterial which is using in a human body. Next, how to design this? So we are seeing the many applications of the biomaterials and how these materials are designed as per the requirement of body structure or body part of our system. Okay, the bulk and surface properties of biomaterials used for medical implants have shown to directly influence and okay, sorry. So and in the some cases control the dynamic interaction that takes place at the tissue implant interface. These characteristics are changed in the characteristics that may take place over time in vivo and in vitro. Should be known for the designing biomaterial for specific applications. So what are the applications like cardiovascular, flowing blood contact, orthopedic, functional load bearing, and a load bearing means hip or knee replacement is using. So what is the vascular graft? Vascular graft is the materials which are used for the preparing the biomaterials, and in which we are using polyurethane, Teflon, and Tacron. It is there are challenges how to maintain the mechanical integrity, and second one is the long term blood compatibility, evidence of blood clotting. So in the case of human body, blood clotting is always considered to design or synthesize a material. Okay, like artificial hip joints, where we have a material stainless steel, titanium, and its alloy. Okay, here is the challenges also wear and loosening over extended periods, 10 to 15 years. So during the 10 to 15 years there should not be side effect like there should not be corrosion type, so corrosion resistant honi chahiye that body, and should not be react with the blood. There is various challenges comes in this, if you are using hip joints. And Chitra heart valve. Now biomaterials are using to prepare the valves. Valves. Many people of India has the problem of have the problem of heart problems. So how to heart problem are different type of problems like valve is generally three valve are in a heart is there. So valve replacement is now is using, most of the people are applied the valve change is a common phenomenon in the heart surgery. So Chitra heart valve, the what is it? The disc which is treatability mounted has a floater more than 1,15,000 times per day in a normal person, having 72 to 80 beats per minute. So, and it translates to disc opening and closing 40 million times a year. So it is very huge. So our, if we are replacing valve by the any man-made or can say synthetic, so it should have a so flexible and so that it can do the work similar to the our heart valve, which is the requirement, basic requirement of that one. So therefore the material used should be extremely durable in terms of wear resistance and fatigue. Fatigue is very important. We all know that our heart never take a sleep or never take a rest. It is working continuously. So valve which is designed should be fatigueless, fatigue. Okay, and valve may have to operate inside the human body up to 25 years or more, which necessitates the material to have excellent chemical and structural ability. So chemical and structural stability is important, and that can be tested before we are implanting it. Now the biocompatibility, which I have explained, it should not both tissue compatibility and blood compatibility. So that material is a major requirement, that one. And finally, biomaterial should be, or a wall material should be processable to achieve the required surface finish and dimensional stability. And next it is UHMPW has all the advantages. Yes, मतलब Chitra heart valves related to it. Properties such as durability, longevity, stress resistance. This is all are important phenomenon, important characteristics of a heart valve. That is a requirement of tissue and blood compatibility. And fatigue is, as you know, our heart is working 24 hours all the times. Next, ventricular assist devices. That devices can be considered as an half of the total artificial heart. Have evolved from a daring experimental concept to a life prolonging tool. And next is the how they are now used to maintain a patient with a failing heart while waiting for a heart transplantation. So just I am just explaining how what are the application of biomaterials, and it is entirely different to the our chemical engineering or this. But here it is the polymer engineer can work with this, and then and polymer engineering person can go in this field easily. So my purpose is that we should understand apart from the normal biomaterials. So here I am giving the some example of biomaterials, how it is using in our body, and what type of requirement of that one is required. So here is some challenges to synthesize, to develop these materials. Maintain proper electromechanical functioning, prevention of infection and clotting of blood. Infection, so before implanting of any part of any synthetic part in our body, so before we conduct various experiments to study the changes with the time. Okay. Next is this is the simple characterization of biomaterials, how they prepare. Metals, polymers, ceramics are used. So we use the combination of metals and polymers to develop a particular class of biomaterials. We can have a permutation combination with some part of metals, which metal is required, and polymers and ceramics. Okay, this is the biomaterials which are using for the artificial body parts. And major unmet medical need. More than 43 million have some form of arthritis. Arthritis, this is the major example of this. So this is not curable till date. There is no effective treatment, and our 10% population is affected with this. So the biomaterials are very boon for this arthritis patient. We have some replacement of this one. So arthritis is not curable or not a fully curable or effective treatment. And articular cartilage biology is have some impact on this. Dense connective tissue that form the load bearing surfaces of synovial joints. Because of the small quantity of chondrocyte, the reduced availability of progenitor cells in the local environment, and cartilage being a vascular and alignment fatigue tissue. Articular cartilage has limited capacity to regenerate. And what is the hypothesis to produce to develop? These are the synthesize the biomaterials, that the fibers made from the biodegradable and biocompatible polymers such as polylactide, co-glycide, and that have a monometer dimension will mimic the collagen fibrils present in the native human tissue, and that these polymeric nanofibers can be engineered into porous three-dimensional scaffold that are appropriate for the tissue engineering. So that is the basic hypothesis for the synthesis of biomaterials. Now possibilities, there are different possibilities. We can have polymer nanofibers ban gaye, so how it is applied in a different way. Next is drug delivery. Drug delivery system is having the biomaterials, formulation or device that delivers therapeutic agent to desired body and provides timely release of therapeutic agents. The system on its own, it is not a therapy, but improves the efficacy and safety of the therapeutic agent that it cares. So what is the disadvantage? Vivo, this is Vivo, the Vivo system which is in body. Sorry, rapid breakdown of the drug in vivo. Hydrophobic drug may precipitate in aqueous media. Next, unfavorable of pharmacokinetics, poor biodistribution dose, limiting side effects, lack of selectivity for target tissues. Possible solution, this is the problems. So here some problems, how to remove overcome these problem by synthesizing such a biomaterials which have an which have a properties that can overcome these problems, like maintenance of optimum therapeutic drug consent, a predetermined release rate of extended period of time, elimination of side effect. Next is the better patient compliances. This advanced systematic chemotherapy, everybody where we are using this biomaterials and has various effects. Intramolecular chemotherapy, I'm not going through much in this. Importance of nano carriers. Here, nanomaterials are important. Nano biomaterials, which is are having the range of 500 nanometer to 20 micrometers. Nanoscale carrier offer advantage of easy cell and tissue uptake. High surface area to volume ratio has the importance. Future of biomaterials. So future is of biomaterial is very great. An appropriate combination of engineers, clinicians, and basic science researchers will pave off the way for the development of better biomaterials and hence medical devices that will help improve the quality of life of human beings. Now this is the part of the synthesis part of biomaterials. Now come to the next, how to characterize materials of biomaterials. So in this we will study the, we will know how the materials biomaterials are characterized. Any material, if you are producing anything, so first you should understand how you will characterize it. Characterization of any process industries or process is important. What product are you making, whether it is is matched with the qualities or requirement of the person or our market need. So what are the character, what are the properties? So that properties of the material is find out by this. Could you understand? Characterization techniques are very important part of any product developments. So there are different type of characterizations. First characterization is chemical characterization. Second is the physical characterization. In the chemical characterization, the determination and also chemical characteristics, molecular structure of biomaterial. Often it is required to different applications. Okay, this section represents an overview of the important chemical characterization strategies and spectroscopic techniques. So in the chemical, we will have chemical structure, all these things. And next is physical and biological coming in my slides, next slides. So what are the chemical characterizations? Chemical characterizations are following, in which very important is the FTIR analysis, Raman spectroscopy, and X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy. Next, ultraviolet visible spectroscopy, nuclear magnetic resonance, and mass spectrometry. So these all techniques gives us the information about the chemical composition, chemical structure of the our material or biomaterial. Here we are discussing only the biomaterials. All the biomaterials are characterized in the terms of chemical composition, chemical bonds are present, or mass spectroscopy will give you the molecular weight, of that compound or that materials. So here first we are going through the infrared spectroscopy. This is very commonly used optical technique for identification of compounds and their chemical structure analysis. Means what are the functional groups are present in a material or in a chemical or in a biomaterials. So what are the functional groups are present that can be determined by the IR spectroscopy. And this technique is non-destructive, means material is whatever is using, that is not destructive, that is not lost, that is as it is, you can take out. Okay, if you as it is, this technique is non-destructive and can be applied to analyze gaseous, liquid or solid. So this is the most important technique of to determine the chemical analysis of a substance, because of it is non-destructive and can be used for all the materials present in the nature: gas, liquid, solid. These are three phase. And next, this is the spectra are achieved by the passing reflecting a beam of IR radiation through from a material, and that resulting spectrum consists of plot of absorption and transmission and refraction intensity versus wavelength of frequency. And we know already that the particular functional group has this absorption or this wavelength, sorry, this wavelength pe this frequency or wavelength of frequency matched with the particular bond. So we can find out the particular bond by comparing whether what are the peaks are coming. If it is coming 800 means wavelength, so corresponding a particular, suppose OH group present, NOH group present. So what are groups are present, that can be find out by the comparing of the absorbance frequency of that material. So here there are three type of spectral subregions in the FTIR spectroscopy, in which if it is come to 800 to 1250 nanometer, it is near infrared, or 2500 to 15,000 nanometer, it means MIR, far infrared, medium infrared. So these are the three parts of a material of a this is spectroscopy. And generally what happens, these tools are very handy. You have a spectrophotometer, it may be in your your institute. This is the FTIR, this is available in generally in chemistry department, as well as chemical engineering department also has this facility. Most of the institute has this facility. This is very handy or very easy going to how to determine the functional groups. And this is the setup, and this is, you can understand how IR source and आपका mirror, then refraction, specimen chamber. This is all parts of this. The most common type of IR instrument is the Fourier transform. Actually, I am just saying Fourier, in which we are using Fourier series. Mathematical Fourier series is using, okay, to analyze the data of FTIR. That's why it is called the FTIR. We are using Fourier transform to analyzing the data. That's why it is called the FTIR. FTIR spectrometer, owing to its high signal to noise ratio, easy to use, as I said, and relatively low cost. Okay, and it is possible to change the time delay between the reflected beams of the two mirrors, which is showing in this figure. You can see, and it is possible to change the time delay between the reflected beams of the two mirrors continuously using the movable mirror. Next, the specimen is located in front of the detector. See the detector. Next, the specimen is located in front of the detector, where the interferogram is recorded. At that interferogram, data are not useful as it is. However, its Fourier transform reveals the information about the spectral response of the specimen. Okay, the specimen chamber may be in a configuration to send out the transmitted or reflected beam here. And next is the FTIR is a valuable tool that is widely used by researchers as a biomedical example. FTIR has been used for the investigation of the conversion degree in the dental composites and polymerization process. This is also very important part of study. Key dental dentist generally do the FTIR very frequently. Okay, a specific technique. It is a specific technique, attenuated total reflection. Basic concept: total reflection. Okay, and is frequently employed to characterize biomaterials. The main advantage of ATR FTIR is the feasibility of direct assessment without using any pre-treatment or destructing the specimen during the preparation. Means you have a, suppose a material A, you want to characterize through FTIR, so you can put it directly. There is no dilution, there is no solvent is required, there is no other foreign material is required, and so that's why it is very easy. You can put it on the in the chamber, specimen chamber, and find the your results. But you should know at what frequency what groups comes. Next is Raman spectroscopy. This is another spectroscopic method for characterizing the materials, in which Raman is scattering another non-destructive and non-invasive spectroscopy method, and it is complemented to IR spectroscopy. Means कि confirmation test एक उससे किया, then आपको IR absorption spectrum is employed to assess molecular vibration and has considerable potential as an analytical technique in the characterization of biomaterials in any state, solid, liquid, or gas. Selection rules that govern the principles of Raman scattering and IR absorption spectroscopy are completely different. Thus, there exists certain vibrational mode excitation that are allowed in IR spectrum but are forbidden in the Raman spectroscopy. Okay, means we can say that Raman is a more advanced part of spectroscopy. Raman spectra are generated due to the interaction of the photons and specimen molecules and collected using optical filters from the scattered light. So that's why Raman spectra contain the information about the chemical species, molecular structure, and the configuration of the materials that provide a fingerprint of their identifications. Okay, in the fingerprint you are using FTIR only, but Raman also are using these days. Raman intensity is plotted versus the Raman shift. Raman shift is, what is the Raman shift? Raman shift is defined as the difference of frequency between the Raman scatter and the incident light beam. Okay. So this CS, SS, CS, these CC double bond groups are example which provide strong Raman bands. Means these CS, SS, these bonds cannot be seen in the FTIR spectroscopy. Okay. Next, X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy, XPS. Now this is the advanced techniques to characterize the biomaterials or any chemical product. Okay, XPS, as we know, is a very potent technique suitable for characterizing the elemental and chemical composition. By this, you can find out the elements. What are the elements are present? Elements in terms of whether carbon, sulfur, oxygen, chloride, bromide, or what are the elements are available. Okay, what are the elements are available in your product or your sample or your any material, biomaterials. Here we are discussing about the biomaterials. In the case of biomaterial, if we want to know the element, what are the elements are present, we can find out by this spectroscopy. the phenomena is based on the photoelectric effect that refers to the surface bombardment of the X-ray photons. Next, in the XPS, the electron ejection occurs using a monochromatic beam of soft X-rays in ultra high vacuum environment. And next step is the electrons are then emitted from the shell of the atoms, and their kinetic energy and number are simultaneously measured by detector. Okay, and the next step is in the XPS is the difference of the photon energy and the sum of the electron kinetic energy, and the work function determine the electron binding energy. The work function depends on the spectrometer and material, so it is often treated as an adjustable instrumental correction factor. In the XPS spectrum, it consists of a plot of detected number of photoelectrons as a function of binding energy. So here binding energy of the electrons is a characteristics of the elements, but it is also affected by the formal oxidation state and the local bonding environment, such as the identity of the nearest neighbor atoms, bonding hydrogenation to the nearest neighbor atoms. So these are the steps to conduct the XPS or X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy of of a material. And these are all the XPS is sensitive to chemical nature of the materials and provides the somewhat different results for different chemical binding states. So this is a very sensitive spectroscopy in which chemical nature of the materials that provides somewhat different result for different chemical binding states. The use of XPS is limited, and in the analysis of biological material or biomaterial, as they have relatively short lifetimes in high vacuum and under radiation damage caused by X-ray photons. Although the ambient pressure XPS is a current area of development. Okay. Now, therefore, nevertheless, vast application of XPS in biomaterials characterization. Many different studies have underlined potential of XPS to examine and analyze the types of biomolecules, some of which include proteins, peptides, lipids, enzymes, and DNA. So, because of it gives the elemental analysis as well as chemical analysis, gives you the elements. What are the elements present? So it is also useful to study or to characterize the DNA. XPS enables investigating the extent of functionality and specific absorption or binding to these biomolecules onto various surfaces. Hence, it helps to develop biosensors, bioarrays, and biofouling controls for medical or dental applications. So we see most of the physical things like dental analysis, dental applications, and in which SPS is a essential tool, and FTI are also a very essential tool to characterize the dent आपके teeth problem or dental problem can be studied or can be determined by these spectroscopy method. And next is the XPS has been also applied to the analysis of hard tooth tissue in restorative मतलब means आपके tooth का what hardness of your tooth tissue, how to degrade or degradation can be determined by this technique, and dentistry including the effect of different treatments. Somebody is taking tooth treatment where improvement or deterioration of tooth can be find out or determined by the this spectroscopy. Okay, and health of the tooth. The understanding of the mechanism under spinning the interactions between the biomaterial and hard tissue. Okay. Next, this is all about the XPS, in which that is also very important tool in the medical science. Next, ultraviolet visible spectroscopy, in which you are using the ultraviolet rays. That's why its name is the ultraviolet. Ultraviolet vis spectroscopy, one of the earliest characterization of techniques, and it can be utilized to measure the absorbance of UV to visible light by a material as a function of the wavelength. The UV region extends from approximately 190 to 350 nanometer and visible region 350 to 800 nanometer. The absorption happens due to the electronic transitions from the ground state to excited state, and its magnitude depends on the Beer-Lambert's law. Beer-Lambert's law is using in ultraviolet, and ultraviolet visible spectroscopy can be used for polar non-polar materials. Okay, in which A is here, A is ABC, where A is the absorbance, small a is the wavelength dependent absorption, B is okay absorption coefficient, A small a is the absorption coefficient, B is the path length through the solution in an analytical cell, and the C is the molar concentration of the absorbing analyte. So this is ultraviolet spectroscopy. It has a very important role in where we are having a mixture in which very dilute mixture. Here ppm level of material is there, so can be determined by this spectroscopy, ultraviolet visible spectroscopy. It is used in generally water pollution. In the water pollution it is using there. This non-destructive spectroscopy method offers both qualitative and quantitative information about a liquid sample only. This is the restriction of this spectroscopy. This is only used in for the liquid sample, not gas and solid. According to the Beer-Lambert's law, the absorption of a particular substance in a solution is directly proportional to its concentration. Hence, the absorption spectroscopy can be used for quantitative analysis. Also, the absorptivity of a molecule is a wavelength dependent parameter, and its intensity depends on the chemical nature. Therefore, this technique is an excellent analytical tool for the characterization and evaluation of many materials, including dental, biomaterials, and composites. Okay. Next is nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. This is NMR spectroscopy provides a non-destructive method for research on a chemical structure or confirmation and dynamics of the biomolecules. Okay, it is also gives there are two carbon NMR or hydrogen NMR. Okay, people are try to find out in a hydrocarbon material how many hydrogen bond, how many CH bond, how many carbon bonds are present. That is useful to study the structure or to fix the structural formula or structure of that a particular material. So NMR probes the nuclei of the atoms and not the electrons. A spin nuclei mechanism occurs in NMR. That is often based on the behavior of the specific atoms. The specific atoms, hydrogen NMR, carbon, and this 15 nm, 31 phosphorus, 19 exposed to an external magnetic field. So in this, we are using the magnetic field to energize or activate the bonds. The atomic nuclei with non-zero spins are NMR active in a magnetic field and generate two low and high energy spin states with the energy difference of delta E. An external magnetic field which is often very strong in the range of 1 to 10 tera for the modern NMR instruments is used to induce the energy difference delta E between the two spin states of the nuclei. And this sample is simultaneously exposed to a radio frequency transmitter that, depending on the magnitude of the delta E and different wavelength of the RF reflective field, or resonance field is absorbed, which is directed by RF receiving circuit. The delta E is a function of the external magnetic field as well as the characteristics of the specific atoms. These are the hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, fluoride that exposed to external magnetic field. And here NMR spectrum is collected either by sweeping the magnetic field while the frequency of RF radiation ID fixed, or by varying the frequency of the RF radiation under fixed magnetic field. Next is the NMR is this is the setup. Just this is a very huge setup, or this is its cost is very high. So only the research R&D labs of India has this instrument. Not each and every institute has, or this is not a common instrument. Okay, an NMR spectrum is exhibited as a plot of signal intensity from the RF receiver against the chemical shift. The chemical shift can be described as the ratio of the difference between the frequencies of a given sample and that of a reference compound, expressed in the parts per million ppm. The chemical shift can reveal information about the covalent and non-covalent structure of the molecules. Here, NMR has also been applied in a molecular level. Okay, molecular study of the material can be done through this spectroscopy. Of molecular level, understanding of the mechanism underpinning biomineralization, such as one used, okay, for bone repair and heart tissue regeneration of the teeth, or in restorative dentistry. Next, in the case of chemical spectroscopy, chemical analysis, in which next is the mass spectroscopy. Mass spectroscopy is the last in this chemical and a characterization of a biomaterial, in which MS is a highly sensitive analytical technique which has been increasingly employed to characterize biomaterials based on the mass to charge ratio of the gas phase ions. The types of elements in the biomaterials and difference between the masses of the isotopic forms of a given atom can be determined by the mass spectroscopy. And basic use of this mass spectroscopy, the molecular weight of a substance, or expected what are the expected molecular weight of a material. MS ionizes the material in the ionization source and employs mass to charge ratio to separate the resulting ions in the mass analyzer. The ions are then detected with or without fragmentation or their relevant abundance. The mass spectroscopy, in conjunction with the chromatographic separation methods, including gas or liquid chromatography, gas or liquid means gas liquid chromatograph, GC, or GLC. GLC is also very important, that is used for the organic materials, or organic volatile materials. If it is a organic material, and that can be determined by the gas and liquid chromatography. GLC, GC. Many of you know the GC, gas chromatograph. Gas chromatograph is used to determine the volatile organic materials present in a sample or in a material. Only liquid and gas phase reaction can be studied by GC. Next, studies indicate that a secondary ions mass spectrometer is a sensitive technique to characterize the biomaterials and biomineralized bone and dental tissues. The development of time of flight has also enhanced the mass spectroscopy sensitivity. So this is all about the 5 to 6 spectroscopy techniques by which we do the chemical characterization of a materials. Next come the physical characterization techniques. Physical characterization techniques is studied by the scanning electron microscope, transmission electron microscope, and it is also atomic force microscope, X-ray diffraction, contact angle measurement, and TGA, thermogrammetric analysis, that gives the stability of a material with the temperature. So these 6 techniques are used to determine the physical characterization of a biomaterial. First, we are going to the scanning electron microscope. Scanning electron microscope, and nowadays ESM, electron scanning electron microscope, advanced version of SAM. Okay, is one of the common method for imaging the microstructure and morphology of the materials. So SAM analysis gives the morphology of a material, surface morphology. Okay, simultaneously, if we have a EDAX, SAM EDAX, SAM EDAX also gives the elemental analysis, rough estimation of presence of elements in a product or in a chemical material. In SAM, what is the principle of SAM or mechanism in SAM? An electron beam with low energy is radiated to the material and scans the surface of the sample. In a simple language, magnifying the image. Okay, we are using mobile phone or advanced smartphone, in which we have a option where we can increase the pixel. Okay, pixel means if 800 pixel, 50 pixel, so your image can be magnified by 80 megapixel है तो 80 times, 90 times, 100 times. That is called the pixel. Okay, so SAM also do the like a camera. It take the image and it magnifies or enlarge the picture so that you can study the morphology study through the morphology study through this tool. Okay, several different interactions occur as the beam reaches enters the material, which leads to the emission of the photons and electrons from or near the sample surface. Here, in order to form an image, the receiving signals produced from the electron sample interaction are directed with the different types of detectors depending upon the mode of SAM being used. Okay, so this is little bit about the SAM, and different modes of the SAM exists for characterization of materials, that is including the biomaterials such as X-ray mapping, secondary electron imaging, back scattered electrons imaging. Okay, electron channeling, and Auger electron microscopy. That is a typical SEM consists of several components. So what are the components? SEM hedge are such as the electron gun, which is located on the top of the column and emits electrons. Secondary electrons are then accelerated and energy levels of typically 0.130 keV, electron volt, kilo electron volt. Hairpin tungsten gun, which make a high diameter electron beam to form high resolution images. Electromagnetic lenses and apertures which focus and shape the electron beam to form a small concentrated electron spot on the sample. A high vacuum environment that allows electrons moving without being scattered or absorbed by the air. This is the basic requirement of SEM. SEM should have a high vacuum environment that allows electrons moving without being scattered or absorbed by the air. And more than SEM EDX, EDX. EDX gives you the elemental rough estimation of elements present in a sample is given by the SEM EDX. Now the TAM is the advanced version of SEM. Transmission electron microscopy is often used to acquire direct information about the morphology, crystal structure, and composition of materials to higher resolution than what is usually achievable with SEM. Means अगर SEM 100 पिक्सल का तो ये 1000 पिक्सल का हो जाएगा. So whatever cannot be visible in that in the SEM, that may be visible in TAM. So now TAM analysis is the requirement of the publication of your research work. If you are putting SEM images, so most of the journals reject your papers. So transmission electron microscopy should be done, okay, to avoid your paper, to avoid your research paper as rejected, because morphology and crystal structure and composition simultaneously come at a glance, one glance. You can find out and you can study, and more reliable data are obtained by this transmission electron microscopy as compared to scanning electron microscopy. In these methods, electrons are emitted from an electron gun located in a vacuum chamber and directed by the electrostatic lenses onto the specimen. Due to the interaction of the electrons with the sample, depending upon the sample density, some electrons undergo scattering and some others pass through the sample. So sample must be thin enough so that the number of transmitted electrons is sufficient for imaging. So this is the necessary condition. Your sample must be thin so that the number of transmitted electrons is sufficient for imaging. This is in the case of transmission electron microscope. This is the condition of the TAM. And once the electrons is transmitted, then these electrons pass through the sample and hit the detector, such as fluorescent skin at the bottom of the microscope and an image. Okay, so you have to understand all the parts, and this PPT will be available with the organizing team So you can save it and understand properly what are the steps involved in each and every techniques and what are the basic concept behind this. Okay, next is these electrons, these is called transmitted electron pass through the sample and hit the detector such as fluorescent skin at the bottom of the microscope and an image. The image density intensity follows the sample density. The denser the sample, the less electron pass through it, and darker image is generated. Achieving a high resolution image in a nanometer or a less scale is most important advantage of TAM. So this is cannot be obtained by the SAM. What? What? Because it has a very high resolution. Very high resoluted images in at a nanoscale or less. Okay, and a small electron wavelength can lead to very high resolution in order of less than a nanometer. And other important feature of this TAM has also some limitation. Okay, as we know it, because what is the, because इसमें sample damage हो जाएगा, like sample damage. Okay, sample damage क्यों होता है? Due to the electron beam energy, low contrast in the low atomic materials, and a small depth of the resolution that results in two-dimensional images. So this is the basic features of an electron microscope and its limitations. I have explained. What I mean is the damage of the sample. Next is atomic force microscope. Here, what is the atomic force microscope? What is it? It is a technique to image and analyze almost all kind of surfaces, hard, soft, insulated, conducting, or synthetic or natural. This is very good instrument. AFM image, what do you tell you? AFM image tells you the three-dimensional features of the surface with a spatial resolution of nanometer or angstrom. Sorry. An optical system is used to record the beam deflection, which is proportional to the interatomic forces. Wait, sorry. Sorry, yeah. An optical system is used to record the beam deflection, which is proportional to the interatomic forces. That is the basic and that is the mechanism of the atomic microscope. An optical system is used to record the beam deflection, which is proportional to interatomic forces. And different modes of AFM have been developed based on the tip surface interaction. Dynamic force or tapping mode, in which the tip oscillations and moves near the surface of the sample. The oscillations lead to periodic contact of the tip end with the surface. Contact mode, in which the tip moves over the surface of the sample and experiences a strong repulsive force that bends the beam. Okay, and in the non-contact mode, in which the tip moves close to the surface further than the case of dynamic mode and not touching the sample. The interaction of forces in this mode are very low, in the range of piconewtons. The non-contact mode does not damage the surface of the soft sample, which can happen in other mode due to the penetration of the probe into the sample. So this is the technique. Atomic force is the destructive or non-destructive. Okay. Sometime it is or whether it is atomic force microscopic destructive or or non-destructive. No, it may be both. It is both. It destructive. It may be non-destructive. Okay, because of contact or non-contact mode are using to study the sample. Next XRD. X-ray is very common in the field of health sector and many other fields. X-ray is very important and very powerful tool to study most of the most of the characteristics of a material. X-ray diffraction is a strong technique, as I said you, for characterization of both structure and composition of the materials. And it is a diffractometer, consists of an X-ray generator, a diffractometer, which controls the direction of the X-ray beam and the position and orientation of the sample, as well as the detector. A detector and a computer to collect and analyze the data. This is the base. And in a simple language, first, as a chemical engineer, if we are a chemical engineer, we can, if we are doing the X-ray, so our basic purpose to X-ray, XRD, so whether our product is our product or our sample is crystalline or amorphous, okay? Whether it is amorphous or crystalline, this is the basic requirement of a chemical engineer. Chemical engineer. Okay, that can be determined by the X-ray XRD analysis. XRD say we can find out the amorphous or crystalline. If it is crystalline, it means it has a surface area, or that can be studied. It has a definite structure. So whether a molecule or whether a substance is amorphous, that is also can find out this. And area of surface area or active surface area can be find out only those materials which are crystalline. Okay. Next is the X-ray diffractometer, consists of X-ray generator, a diffractometer which controls the direction of the X-ray beam and the position, next the orientation of the sample, as well as the detector, a detector and computer to collect the analysis the data. In this method, monochromatic X-ray beam is radiated towards the material and the intensity of diffracted beam is measured as a function of angle of incident. The crystal interplanar space D spacing, okay, D spacing 2D sin theta. The distance between the atomic planes in the material will be calculated as 2D sin theta, where D is the interplanar space. Lambda is the wavelength of rays, which is X-ray beam, which is radiated towards the material. 2D sin theta. D is the sin theta. D is the spacing. 2D. Next is contact angle measurement. This is in the case of when we use a biomaterial as a biomaterial in the human body or any human body only. In the case, we need the biocompatibility. Okay? Contact angle measurements. The biocompatibility is one of the most important features of the biomaterials that must be characterized carefully due to the interaction with the tissues. And the surface properties of biomaterials may also change due to the exposure to the atmosphere or body environment. So that is studied by the contact angle measurements. For example, these layers of oxide, carbon, hydrocarbon may be formed on the surface of the biomaterial even when they are exposed to the normal atmosphere. Okay. Solid surfaces can be categorized in two groups of low and high energy surfaces. The first group has surface tension less than 100 nines, such as polymeric materials, organic compounds, In contrast, metallic and inorganic surfaces have surface tension of almost 200 to 500 dynes per centimeters and are placed in the second group. This is, please read it, surface tension of almost 200 to 500 dynes per centimeter and are placed in a second group. And it is quite often special treatments are used to clean the surface of the materials and change it into a hydrophilic surface. Contact angle measurement is one of the techniques to determine the hydrophilicity or hydrophobicity. This measurements this measurement shows the physical properties of the surface or the coatings such as adhesion, wettability, and cleanliness. This is what is wettability. Wettability especially indicates the interaction between the liquid and the solid surface. Different techniques are used to measure this parameter, including the direct optical methods and indirect force method. Among these methods, drop shape analysis and asymmetric drop shape analysis are very common. The latter method is especially very accurate with the reproducibility of 62 and appropriate for contact angle measurements of ultra small droplets like this. See the structure 39 and 103 degree towards the droplets or away from the droplets. The angle between the surface and the tangent line at the contact point of the drop with the surface is called the contact angle. What is the contact angle between the surface and tangent line at the contact point of the drop with the surface is called the contact. See, contact angle is 103, 39. This is the contact angle. Okay. This is the tangent line and surface. It's called the contact angle. The contact angle is quantitative value that determines the hydrophilicity of the surface. The angle decreases as the surface becomes more hydrophilic. They are hydrophilic, hydrophobic. If it is angle decrease like this, 39, so 39 is more hydrophilic. This surface is more hydrophilic. The contact angle can also indicate the amount of homogeneity or heterogeneity of sample surface. The spreading parameter S is a parameter that quantifies the wettability of a surface and is defined as S is equal to gamma S minus gamma 1 plus gamma S1. When S less than 0, liquid does not spread on the surface and the drop takes a spherical shape, indicating partial or no wetting. In the case of जैसे कि आप उसे डालते हो mercury डाल दीजिए आप mercury, if you put the mercury on the surface of that will not attach because of angle less than 0. S wettability is less than 0. Okay, I mean liquid does not spread on the surface and drop takes a spherical shape. Like the mercury, no wetting. Whereas when S is greater than 0, liquid spreads on the surface, indicating a total wetting. तो S wettability जितनी ज्यादा होगी, जैसे पेंट के केस में, if you are studying the paint, तो at the place at that the wettability should be high so that it can cover the more surface. Okay, taking a small volume, taking a small amount and giving and painting the more surface. So S should be greater 0. Next is mercury intrusion porosymmetry. Porosymmetry is the percentage of wide space. Wide space किसी solid में you have to determine the porosity. Means how porous is that one. Porosity is described as the percentage of void space in a solid and is an important character of a biomaterial to permit cell migration and proliferation, cell nutrition, and vascularization for tissue regeneration. Okay. A porous surface provides the noteworthy mechanical stability by enhancing the mechanical interlocking between the inserted biomaterials in a human body and the surrounding natural history. So here porous biomaterials have been seriously researched and many researchers has done and used as a scaffolds in tissue engineering or regeneration as well as drug delivery. So mercury intrusion porosimetry test is very important in the case of the drug delivery system and tissue engineering. All the minimum pore size needed to permit in growth of the mineralized tissue is to the order of 50 micrometer. Larger the pore size can increase the depth of infiltration. जितना pore size ज़्यादा होगा, increase the depth of infiltration of the mineralized tissue into the biomaterial. However, these larger pore sizes deliberate the mechanical characteristics. Okay, smaller pore size creates larger surface area, causing higher absorption of the cell-inducing protein. Hello, as the any hello hello as the optimal pore size is reliant on the biomaterial employed and its application. There is a very crucial to examine the porosity and pore size of biomaterials. By that we can find out the stability of that material. Okay, so that is important part of any biomaterial which are using in a human body. Porous material may have two vital pore types, open and closed pores. Hello, please. After the presentation, I will take your questions. Okay, please don't talk with each other. The closed pores are inside the bulk material and not reachable to the outside fluids. Open pore is a channel that is connected to the surface of the material and it is reachable to the fluids. Open pores are categorized into dead end pores, which terminate inside the materials and interconnected through pores, which make the passage of the fluid feasible. Hence, the pore diameter. The International Union of Pure and Applied Science (UPSC) has categorized pores into three groups: micropores, mesopores, and macropores. Okay, micropores, their diameter less than 2 nanometer, mesopores diameter 2 to 50 nanometer, and macropores are diameter greater than 50 nanometer. Okay, so smallest micropore is 2 nanometer. And interconnected micropores are a crucial factor for scaffolds as they provide the potential to enable tissue in growth. Mercury intrusion porosimetry is widely used for measuring pore size and porosity. The principle is based on the moving of the non-wetting liquid through the porous needing tensor P, which is inversely proportional to the diameter of the pores, assuming the pore is cylindrical and directly proportional to the surface tension of the liquid. And gamma is the liquid tension of a liquid, and angle of contact is theta with the solid surface as described this Washburn equation. This is P is equal to minus 4 gamma cos theta by D. Okay, D is the diameter of the pores, P is the kneading pressure, pores का kneading pressure, and gamma is the tension of the liquid, surface tension. Gas absorption measurements. Gas adsorption measurements used for the surface area, particle size, porous structure of the biomaterials, and this type of technique is used in the catalysis, the field of catalysis and reaction engine, where we need the active surface area as well as the total surface area of a catalyst. Here, gas adsorption measurements, in which surface area, particle size, and porous structure of biomaterials is examined by the determination of the amount of adsorbed inert gas, such as nitrogen, argon, krypton, or carbon dioxide, on the solid surface. Generally, we use the argon, okay, or nitrogen. These are the inert gases. The gas adsorption can be categorized as either physical or chemical sort. Chemabsorption, there are two types of adsorption. First is physical or chemical absorption. Okay, the physical adsorption of a gas include weak molecular forces like van der Waals forces, hydrogen forces, whereas formation of chemical bonds, new establishment of chemical bonds, driving force in a chemical absorption. The physical adsorbed gases can be effortlessly eliminated by the decreasing the partial pressure. But the chemically absorbed gases are generally difficult to eliminate from the solid surface. The physical absorption is employed not only to calculate the surface area, but also to probe the entire surface, including irregularities and pore interiors. पोर का internal structure कैसा है, internal passage कैसा है, what are the irregularities are available in the surface. Equilibrium relation between the amounts of the adsorbed gas with the partial pressure of the gas at the constant temperature is called as gas adsorption isotherm. So different isotherm are studied in these portions, by which various type of adsorption happens, and that by the study of that adsorption, we characterize the material. Okay, to calculate the surface area and pore analysis, Bomer, Emmett, Taylor, BET equation. Many of you, if they are chemical engineering student, may be knowing about the BET surface area. BET surface area is determined by the gas adsorption measurement by using Brunner, Emmett, and Taylor adsorption isotherm. Bomer, Emmett, Taylor isothermal is used to calculate the surface area and pore diameter, porosity, okay, pore length. This is all, which includes the adsorption of a monolayer of nitrogen gas molecules onto the surface of the powder by cooling and then heating to vaporize the monolayer to calculate the amount of nitrogen adsorbed. This surface area is calculated from the adsorption measurements by assuming spherical shape and unmodal distribution of the nanoparticles. And the surface area can then be simply converted into the particle size. It is important to point out that before calculating the specimen is heat treated in a vacuum or flowing gas to the eliminate any contaminate. Contaminate means moisture, another materials that is should be removed before using in your gas adsorbing instrument. So now next is last part of this presentation is the biological characterization of technique, in which first comes biocompatibility of biomaterials, and that is assessed using in vitro and in vivo test. In vitro test क्या होते हैं? In vitro tests are performed outside of the body, in vitro, and in vitro inside the body. कुछ इंसर्शन करते हैं बॉडी के अंदर, कुछ माउथ से some camera are inserted through mouth, or some is the another part of body. Biocompatibility of biomaterials, okay, in vitro and in vivo. In vitro tests are performed outside of the body, as I said, while another is employing cell culture systems, and aim is to simulate the clinical situation. In vivo tests are performed inside the body of the living organism and are more clinically relevant than in vitro tests. In vitro tests are frequently carried out as a screening test prior to in vivo assessment. As in vitro tests are simpler and cheaper than in vivo test. In vivo test, obviously, it is inside the body tests, and there are ethical issues associated with the use of animals for research. So advantage and disadvantage of in vivo and in vitro tests. These are the comes under the category of in vitro test. Okay, in vitro test में advantage कि in vitro test advantage experimentally controllable, repeatable, fast, inexpensive, simple. These are the advantages of this. And in vivo test advantage simulate real body condition. By inside body के real body condition will come clinically relevant है. Okay. And in vitro test में chronic effect cannot be tested. Here in this case chronic effect can be tested. Recommended standard by the ISO, USP, RSTM. These are another things are the relevant. And in vitro characterizations come. What are the test in vitro characterization of a biomaterials? In vitro test systems often include three main components: a biological system, material contact, and biological endpoint. Biological system can be either 2D or 3D, cell cultures or whole organ culture. Cell or material contact can be established in three different ways: direct contact, indirect contact, such as agar overlay technique, and contact through extracts and elevates. Various biological endpoints can be assessed to record the response of the biological system to the tested material. Type of in vitro: cystotoxicity testing, homocompatibility testing, genotoxicity and carcinogenicity testing, reverse transcription polymers chain reaction study. Now, first is the cytotoxicity testing. Cytotoxicity assay is a test for analyzing the cytotoxic effects of the material and medical devices on living organisms. It was the earliest and simplest in vitro technique that was designed for the biocompatibility evaluation of materials. For example, for this is biological endpoints used in the cystotoxicity testing. Morphological assessment are using, as I said, you the in the physical part, physical characterization of material, in which we have explained SAM or TAM. Cell viability and proliferation assays such as Alamar Blue assay, dimethyl 2,5-diphenyl bromide assay, Nutel. This is all test or DNA or protein content measurement. Cell function assays such as measurement of the release of the inflammatory markers, glutathione determination, heat shock protein assay, and apoptosis assay. It is these are the terminology of the medical sciences. It is taken from a book, so that it is not so easy, but it comes under the category of biomaterial. That's why I'm just explaining how the biomaterials are characterized by biomedically. Homocompatibility testing. This testing is a testing method for studying the adverse effect and interaction between the blood and the material or medical device. जो medical device आपने डाली or use inside the body, so that is testing. One of the main issues about homocompatibility is the inadequate standard for anticoagulation. Therefore, it can be difficult to classify the material as homocompatible or non-homocompatible. Reason for that this. The important aspects in homocompatibility testing include physical and chemical characteristics, stability of materials, test conditions, controls, reference materials, and plausibility aspects. So this is come under the homocompatibility testing. Next, genotoxicity and carcinogenicity testing. This is also comes in the biomaterials. Okay, biomaterial characterization, genotoxicity and carcinogenicity testing are of for studying the genotoxic effect, gene mutation, change in DNA and chromosomal alterations, and the carcinogen effects of the biomaterial implant device on the living systems. That is, the effect can be direct DNA target or indirect non-DNA target. Genotoxic effects of the nanomaterials have been evaluated by micronucleus assay, COMET assay, and MS test. These are the all medical tests. Okay, MS test is a method for evaluating mutagenic effects of implant devices, chemicals, and drug utilizing bacteria. The advantage of MS test is its simplicity, low cost, and being a fast assay. Comet assay is another test to detect early DNA damage, and it is a fast, sensitive, simple technique. Reverse transformation polymerization chain reaction. Okay, actually, what happens in our body if sometimes polymerization of cells takes place, that is determined by this technique. Reverse transcription polymerization chain reaction is a sensitive in vitro method and has a crucial role in medical science and biomedical fields. RT-PCR, very common now, everybody know the due to the corona RT-PCR test. RT-PCR, full form of RT-PCR is the reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction. Okay, RT-PCR. Okay, it is sensitive and method. Vitro method, मतलब inside taken the sample, and has a crucial role in medical science and biomedical materials fields. RT-PCR is used for detecting and comparing the levels of mRNA and the surface proteins. Okay. PCR can be performed in real time PCR and endpoint PCR, relative and absolute quantification, adequate. PCR are two models or real time RT-PCR. The main role of endpoint PCR in biomedical field is the measurement of the gene expression. The absolute quantification is preferred to endpoint PCR for detecting levels of gene expression, but endpoint PCR is usually used because it has low cost and needs simple equipment. RT-PCR क्विक होता है ना तुरंत. Next, in vivo characterization, in which we study the sensitization, body के अंदर है, sensitization, irritation and toxicity test, implantation testing, biodegradation test come under this in vivo characterization. In vivo में body के inside part real problem can be find out by these tests. The sensitization, irritation and toxicity test, the innate immune system and adaptive immune system have important roles in the immune responses. So sensitization is an increase in the immune response and acute or delayed hypersensitivity to a biomaterial in a living system, where utilization of the material can result in irritant effects and a simultaneously localized inflammatory reaction on the skin. That's why sensitization testing can be time consuming, as it requires a film of material chemical agent in a saline solution to be placed on the skin of the test subject and the symptoms of the adverse effect of biomaterial to be monitored over the time. Guinea pig maximization, Baylor and marine local lymph node assay are example of sensitization testing. Testing intracutaneous reactivity, materials mediated pyrogen test, acute systematic toxicity. These are the tests are performed under this category. Next, implantation test. Implantation test materials are those materials which are implanted into the connective tissue, muscles, or into the bone of an animal to assess the adverse and pathological effect of products and materials on the function and structure of the tissue. Pathological effect can be analyzed at a gross level or at a microscopic level. This is using histological techniques, which is to demonstrate tissue necrosis and apoptosis, cell proliferation, thrombus formation, and collagen deposition. These are the things are using in implantation testing. Next is it is the short-term and long-term testing can be used to assess the immediate and delayed tissue response to the implanted materials. Now that is very important test. Biodegradation that can be understandable easily. Some degradable biomaterials can be leach out degradation products, impurities, catalyst, and corrosion. And these products to adjacent tissues and distant organs. Biodegradation of material occurs through hydrolytic mechanisms. In vivo biodegradation tests have an important role for studying of effect of the biodegradation of material and the medical devices in living tissue. Okay. Histological analysis can identify biological and tissue responses in a living system. So this is all about the characterization of biomaterials. Here, thank you very much for your patience for understanding many things which is related to the medical science may be difficult to listen. So then, thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
No.
This is one.
Any question?
Any question from audience? Any question? They can write in the chat box also. Any question from audience?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for giving me opportunity.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Or I can send you my PPT if you require.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely you can send. You can send to our participant.
Thanks.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So the next session will be started at 3:45. That is given by our Vice Chancellor. His topic is the demonstration of feasibility of green technology and waste management in academic institute for circular economy, trillions dollar opportunity of research and innovation. This is the topic. It was started from 3:45 and ended around 4:45 p.m. 5 p.m. After that, we can we can formal close the program. Okay, and we'll there is one exam is there, test exam is there, which is conducted at 5:30 to 6:30. In between, there is 45 minutes according to the AICTE. It is given 45 minutes. Okay, but there is some network problem is there. That's why we will give you 1 hour. So 5:30 to 6:30 is the maximum time. So next session will be start at 3:45. So Anu sir, can you stop the recording?